There we go. There we go. We are live. How are you guys doing out there? Brad, glad to have you. And I will keep doing the live streams. I just can't help it. So the topic of this stream, what I call it? What I call it? The horrid illumination of consciousness. And actually, let me check something here. Testing. I can now post on my streams. I think I figured out why I couldn't post until now. It's that I needed to register a handle, which I did not know until now. And Mike, thank you for being here. The topic of this stream is going to be mythological in nature. I've been doing what I do. I've been going about the earth, up and down on it, and paying attention to things, noticing things. And maybe the thumbnail gave you an idea of what we're going to be talking about. This is Samsara, sir. We suffer here. Link below is an article by Rudolf Steiner. Well, I'm sorry, not by Rudolf Steiner, about Rudolf Steiner. Well, I guess I might as well just jump into the headline. Did you know that the name Lucifer appears nowhere in the Bible? Well, technically, it does appear once. But it's in the book of Isaiah. And it's being used as a sarcastic insult to the king of Babylon. It's calling him the star of morning. It's possibly, making a reference to Venus, to the dark light of the morning star, to Lucifer who illuminates. It is probably a reference to a Babylonian deity. Although I'll have to get back to you on that. What it's not is a reference to Satan. Ain't that interesting? Ain't that interesting? Evil crypto trader is a redundant starving vampires. By the way, I'm trying out this new headset. It's mainly going to be for interviews. But, well, we'll see. If the audio is better than normal, that's fantastic. It might be. Just try and figure out if there's any issues with it. At some point, I'm going to need to upgrade to a webcam that doesn't repeatedly refocus every 3 minutes or so. Mitch, glad to have you here. So Lucifer doesn't appear in the Bible. Aside as a backhanded insult, likely referencing a Babylonian deity. But keep in mind that the entire religious framework of the classical world was it was a gradual blend from east to west. All these people were more or less worshiping the same basic deities. Thank you. Starving Vampire says the audio is great. So I think we might, the headphones just don't just look cool. They actually work. That's fantastic. I've also upgraded the office chair. Yeah, that old one cost me $200. It was garbage. This one cost me $40. It's real leather and it's super comfy. It even does that thing where it just leans back perfectly. perfect amount of lean back. It's not fighting you all the time like the old one. I'm loving this new office chair. Wish I could tell you the manufacturer. I can't. So all I can say is the old ones that didn't buy that, bro. Utter trash. So all of the quote unquote pagan religions. I need to find a better term than pagan religion because pagan just means people of the field. It just means the MAGA crowd. All those MAGA Republicans outside of Rome who are still worshiping the old gods. That's all it actually means. So if you want to get worked up over that, go ahead. But it's not really an accurate term for the religious views prior to that. Hey, Pinkerton's Ghosts. Hey guys, check out his channel. He does audiobooks or not audiobooks, like radio plays of a paranormal investigator going up against demons. It's some cool shit, man. You should check out his channel. It's good stuff. Give him a like and subscribe and a comment while you're at it. So Lucifer is just the morning star. It's just it's Venus, typically the masculine form of Venus. And Venus is the goddess of illusion and insight. Jordan Peterson has some great lectures about this where he talks about the nakedness in Genesis, where Adam and Eve realized they were naked in front of the other. The self-consciousness that is triggered by romantic love. Right? Like when you first hit puberty and you start being really self-conscious about what the other sex thinks about you. Truth through illusion. Lucifer is a very interesting figure. And well, what do we see when we go up the levels of consciousness? Right? Talking about uh, Ken Wilber here. Ken Wilber and his integral theory. The topic that psychomath is building an entire career on top of and doing an amazing job. Does raising your level of consciousness make you happier? No, it does not. It makes the world a much better place. But I'll tell you what, there's times I wish. Not truly. There's times there's got to be a better word than wish. But there's times I think that if only I could settle for Marvel movies, if I could just get really emotionally involved in politics as if it were real, I could be speaking the same language as everybody else, and I'd be a lot less lonely. Ooh, speaking of language and Luciferianism, there we go. Let there be light. No, higher levels of consciousness make you lonely. They make you aware of your own flaws. Uh, there's the saying that to understand how others see us would be a gift to some, but a curse to many. And higher levels of consciousness are becoming aware of how others see you, becoming very aware of your flaws and your virtues, but mostly your flaws. And yes, there is that relationship between the serpent in the Garden of Eden and Lucifer. which it's all over. It's such a widespread association. And it strikes me as an accurate one. I can't completely tell you why it's an accurate one. If anything, you'd associate the serpent more with Mercury and the staff of Caduceus. And yet there's that persistent, the desire of the apple, the fruit that looks so fine. Desire and illusion and misdirection, thou shalt not surely die. Well, they didn't die right away, did they? If you slice an apple in half, the core of it, where the seeds are stored, forms a pentagram. And this is the same shape that Venus makes. Venus, the morning star, Venus, Lucifer, makes as it moves throughout the night sky, going into 5 sets of recursions. Can you hear my audio now? Like I said, we're taking the bugs out. Either the battery in this thing is almost dead or it's being ornery. Please give me some confirmation. Oh, okay, wait. All right, I've got confirmation that I've got audio right down there. Yeah, I cut out. My headphones turned off. I'm not sure why. Is it because they're not playing sound? Ugh, bugs to work out. Yes, yes, they're wireless headphones, which I don't want to be crawling back around and under the desk and whatnot. They're so much better. Okay, but we're back. We're back. So yes, there is this. And now again, the Bible never says it's an apple. The reason why there's this cultural presumption that it's an apple is because of Lucifer being connected to serpent. That Venus makes that 5-pointed star in the sky, and you see the 5-pointed star inside the apple. And that's where the Lucifer serpent connection comes from. Now to read the book of Genesis from a completely to interpret it in the most literal sense possible, eating the apple was a bad thing. And Lucifer was a bit of a bad guy. But as I said, these mythologies, these mythical stories are part of a wider pastiche of myths that were universal throughout Europe and the Near East. In fact, there's a different, and I would argue more nuanced thing, the creation story, how this latest race of man came about upon the world. And so I'll tell you the one that we get from Greek mythology. Now, in Greek mythology, we are the either 6th or 7th race of men that have been created by the gods on this planet. All the other ones got eliminated. Gods didn't like them much. And so the 6th one, the the gods trusted they trusted the Titans to recreate the Earth this time. In fact, Zeus tasked Prometheus and his brother. I need to look this up again. Sorry, guys. It starts with Epimetheus. Epimetheus. Think epiphenomenon. Prometheus, Epimetheus. Prometheus is forethought. Epimetheus is afterthought. So these titans are something very primordial. Zeus, the other Olympian gods, these are things with personalities. They're really complex. Zeus, the other Olympian gods, these are things with personalities. They're really complex sets of features, even contradictory in some ways. Pinkerton nailed it. Epimetheus, thank you. And so we have these two creators of all the species on the planet, forethought and afterthought. So they were tasked with handing out all of the tools of the trade to all the different animals on Earth. Claws, beaks, fur. But it was Epimetheus that actually did the allotment that every species would get. And then when it came to man, he'd run out of things to give. And so man was left naked and afraid with nothing to defend himself. So Prometheus took it upon himself to steal fire from Hephaestus and to give man fire, to give us that light, that Luciferian edge, to give us forethought, that enlightenment that allowed us to see beyond the other animals and learn to corral all the other animals, but with it also brought great suffering. An animal suffers, but it doesn't know that it suffers. It merely suffers. We not only suffer, we know that we're suffering. When it comes to something like the application of torture, an effective torture, it's not just about hurting the person. It's about scaring them with the hurt that you're going to do in the future, which is something unique to humans. Or at least we have it in a far, far greater degree than any of the other animals. And of course, I'm sure you all know that eventually he did get chained to a mountain where birds peck out his for stealing that fire, although Heracles did eventually rescue him with the help of Athena. Let's put a pin in that. Let's get back to Athena in a moment. After the initial gift of fire to humanity, Zeus wasn't too happy about this. And Prometheus told his brother, don't you be accepting any gifts from Zeus. Okay? That guy, I don't know about him. I don't know about these Olympian gods, man. They're tricky. Play tricks with us. Give with one hand and take with the other. Not sure about these gods. I'm just a titan. And so the gods, well, they decided that what they were going to do is invent woman. And they named her Pandora. Now, Pan means everything. Pan is also the god of nature. If you think about the Garden of Eden as a walled garden, as civilization, where we have all these rules so that things are predictable, and then you have the utter unpredictable insanity of the universe itself. If you've read the Three Body Problem, uh, great series of books. I heartily recommend them. I've seen a couple episodes of the show. It might be really good. I've got no complaints, but I mean, the book's always better. One of the things they really capture in that series and some of the later books is how existentially terrifying outer space is. You have enough fuel to get the delta V that can make or break that can make or break you, period. And if you don't have enough fuel for the delta V, then you are dead. Period. Like there's no argument with the fact of space. You know, you don't hope that your life raft eventually winds up on the shores of North Africa. No, there is no North Africa. There's infinite void if you don't have the delta V. The god Pan of nature is like that. It's completely inscrutable. When you go out in the woods, if you don't have an emergency transponder with you, which is a lifeline back to civilization, you've got no idea what's going to happen. You've got zero idea. There is just wild nature out there, and it is what it is, and it's not going to tell you what it is. That's the god Pan. What about Pandora? Pandora, the explorer, the many gifted. Each one of the gods gave Pandora a gift. Now, if you go back into the go into the original myth, like one gave her a necklace, the other gave her a brooch, etc. What's really interesting is some of the early Christian theologians, use this to argue that it was more primitive than the Garden of Eden. Like they all recognize that this is the same story as Adam and Eve in the garden, but they argued it was more primitive because those stupid pagans can only understand physical gifts as opposed to spiritual insights, which to my mind sounds a lot like a Reddit atheist talking about dumb Christians that believe in talking snakes. Seriously, a lot of the early Christian theologians, these were the original Redditors, guys. Yes, on the surface level, she's receiving literal gifts from the gods. And if you're an idiot, maybe that's what you literally believed when you heard the story. But the people that were spiritually adept understood all these things are metaphorical in nature. That there's some deeper resonance of truth to this story. So Pandora is given gifts by all the gods to adorn her body, and she's also given an amphora full of mysteries and blessings that she's never supposed to open. And Epimetheus takes one look at her and says, I don't care if she's from Zeus, man. She's fantastic. I'm going to grab her. Now, one of the gifts came from God Mercury, who is the god of scientists, journalists, and thieves. And he gifted her curiosity. And so this urn she was given, the Pandora giving, the Pandora's box that she was given, that she's never supposed to open. Eventually, the curiosity got too much with her. And ain't that the eternal curse of woman? And she opened the box, and there's two different versions. The more prosaic version is she opened the box, and all the troubles came out of it. There's another version I quite like, which is that it had all the blessings and the curses of the gods inside of it. And the moment she opened it, all of the blessings, blessings such as an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, and a handshake is as good as a contract, and a haircut you can set your watch to. All of those good blessings, well, they went right back up to heaven, which is where good things belong. They don't belong down here in material reality. And that was all that was left was the Furies. All that was left is Adam breaking his back trying to get the earth to grow plants. Never trust a gift from Zeus. Now, I mentioned Athena earlier. Because of all these shenanigans with the creation of our race, which, Zeus really wasn't too happy about us being granted fire. The gods didn't want us to become like gods. Although Zeus at least would, sometimes come down and mate with our women. You know who is really pissed off about all of this? Hera, who motherhood and jealousy. Hera's the goddess of no, you're not allowed to go drink with the boys. You have responsibilities, husband. And you know what? There is a lot. You want to talk about the jealous God of the Old Testament? That sounds a lot like Hera, doesn't it? I've even seen in occult circles the Yahweh of the Old Testament being equated to a lunar god. But then there's Athena. Athena, a female god of reason and strategy and wisdom, birthed directly from Zeus's skull, and an embodiment of these masculine virtues in a feminine form. She is the one that aided Hercules to eventually free Prometheus. She often sided with the humans against the gods. And she's got another name. She's got another name. She's not just called Athena, she's also called Sophia, wisdom itself. And if you know anything about your Gnostic texts, then you know that the creation of the demiurge occurred when Sophia, the feminine principle of reality, tried to do a masculine creative act. So we've got this pattern of the feminine trying to be masculine or being masculine, and this birthing the tragedy of this world. We have Lucifer, who is typically is Venus, typically a feminine goddess, and yet Lucifer being the masculine aspect of Venus, tricking humanity into becoming wise. And with great wisdom comes great suffering. And yet, should we abandon wisdom? Is Lucifer actually our enemy? Is the demiurge our enemy? The real difficulty with all these ancient myths is that you'll get one version of the myth where, Prometheus is the good guy and Zeus is the bad guy. But you can interpret the other way where Zeus is the good guy and Prometheus is the bad guy. Was the serpent good or evil? The serpent tricked us, yes. But I'm sure you're very familiar with the trope in fiction of a wise elder tricking a young man into having confidence in himself. Turns out the magic was inside of your heart the entire time. Let me catch up with some of the comments from you guys. Let's see. Pinkerton says, I've noticed almost all my batteries are dying sooner. I assume that there's some sort of something actually going on, but I do keep my apartment heatless. No, it turned off spontaneously. I also listened to it for a few hours. I'm still figuring it out. Listen to it for a few hours. I'm still figuring it out. It's the headphones are what's that brand? Razer, and Razer loves to install bloatware on your computer, and I hate bloatware. Like they're really good products with really obnoxious bloatware. Mike says, I think at Genesis, God knew what would happen. He let it happen. Kind of how parents will let their kids screw up sometimes because it's the only way that they can learn the right lesson. Yes, that extremely valid interpretation. Um, C.S. Lewis does something interesting in his novel Prelandria, where basically they run another Garden of Eden experiment on the planet Venus, ironically enough. And in this one, it doesn't go foul. And it turns out that God was planning to give us the fruit when we were ready for it, but we ate it too early. There does seem to be something very, very janky about this reality that we find ourselves in. I'm going to be recording at some point a video on the metaphysics of all of this. On okay, it should be working again. No, I just did it again. Just turned off. So maybe there's some setting that if I don't receive audio for too long, you know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do for the rest of this stream? We are going to look up. What's it called? I can't remember what it's called. Command and Conquer OST. That'll get me in the mood. Just going to put the volume down super low. You guys won't hear it. It's just going to pump me up. And hopefully my headphones will stay on. Okay, and we're going to drop the quality 144. There. Now maybe it'll play. Oh, fantastic. Yes, we will have to act if we want to live in a different world. Ha ha! Lord Greenspace. Hey, glad to have you, man. Thank Donald Trump. I had nothing to do with getting back on here. Pinkerton's ghost says, I think the being who thought he was better than God and went out of his way to corrupt the Garden of Eden by causing Eve to doubt God is evil. Possibly. And if he isn't evil as all that, he's dumb enough to quote scripture to Jesus Christ because he doesn't have any better arguments. It's increasingly looking to me like the Old Testament is simplified, a very simplified mythology from the tapestry that we had before that. In fact, the whole age of Pisces seems to have been a very religiously simplified time, almost like going back to remedial school. Like we were trying to just get everybody get people to level up a little bit. 3,000 years ago, we did people at levels 7, 8, 9. Like there were mystics at these levels. But the vast majority of the population was still like level 3. You wouldn't need slavery if you had a significant number of people at level 4. And so the whole era is just typified by this very, very simplistic religiosity. Like, hey, stupid, stop being a stupid. United Technocrat asked why I got banned in the first place. I believe it was a build up to COVID. They were trying to seize total informational control, and they've got the personality exams on me. Like they already know what I'm gonna say about something like that. You know who I've been reading a lot of lately is Rurik Skywalker over on the Discords there. Not Discord, on Substack. And he does have a very ornery approach, which I can appreciate. I think he's right about a lot of the stuff he says. And yet at the same time, there's all these clues. So he presents the argument that the Old Testament, the Septuagint, was deliberately manufactured to create Plato's communist utopia. And I think he's just about got me convinced on the philosophers. You know, Socrates deserved to drink that hemlock. The last thing we need is another Sparta. Okay, those people were weird, man. I think he's got me convinced on Socrates and Plato, and maybe even Aristotle. And yet, there's all these clues throughout the Septuagint. The fact that like the first words in the book of Genesis are the gods created the heaven and the earth. They've got weird books like the book of Job. The book of Job is a really it's like in before. It's an in before. Like all the atheists, like the theodicity, the question of evil. Why does evil exist? If God is good and God is omniscient and all of this, why does evil exist? It's the most powerful argument against religion. And it's also the entire book of Job. And the book of Job does not give a satisfying answer. It gives a bunch of good questions, but not a satisfying answer. The atheists think they're clever by pointing out that God's kind of a jerk. Well, yeah, Book of Job. Have you read it? Our holy books are weird documents, man. They are weird documents. And anybody that acts as if they have a good, solid, definitive interpretation of what the heck these documents are actually about, it is beyond naive, utterly beyond naive. Glory to Cain. Although, I gotta quote Rurik here. He presented a powerful case that the Nephilim, that's us, Europeans, because the Nephilim, the product of divinities and women, that is Prometheus, Epimetheus, and Pandora. That's where we came from. We have half Titan blood. So, yeah, book of, oh shoot, what's the book? Who's the schizo that isn't included in the Bible? Anyway, yeah, that's blood libel against Europeans. Yes, we're giants. We know. But I mentioned Rudolf Steiner at the start of this. I linked an article about him below. And it's an article about Ahriman and Lucifer. I want to add a third character to this. I want to add a third character, the Shaitan. So if Lucifer is a divinity that tricks us into learning things that don't make us happy but are true, if he is that dark light, the Shaitan going about the earth up and down. I mean, here's the thing: that Satan is not a character in the Bible. Mm, I should say, not in the Old Testament, and possibly not even in the New Testament. There is the adversary, which is what Shaitan means. In the Old Testament, in the book of Job, it's the adversary that confronts Job, that messes with Job. It's a member of God's court. It's one of the Olympian gods, which messes with Job. Enoch, thank you. Enoch. Yeah, I'm thinking they kept Enoch out of the Bible for good reasons. It was part of the Maccabean revolt. Rurik Skywalker's written more on this. It just pattern matches. It pattern matches too damned well. But the Book of Enoch is also the story of Pandora, and it's a blood libel against all the other humans who aren't good enough to be the chosen people. It's a little bit too on the nose. Yeah, even though Christ quotes the Book of Enoch. Banned, yeah, it was kicked out, only preserved by the Church of Ethiopia. Mike says evil is what finally got me to believe in God. I got to the point where I couldn't find any rational explanation for the evil I saw in the world, which left only the supernatural as explanation. Yeah, I completely same thing, man. I believed in evil a lot much before I believed in good. And my goal in discussing all of this certainly isn't to drive anybody to atheism. Although I suppose it is to point out that we have our questions are far bigger than our answers at this point. And thinking you have the answers when you have nothing but questions is a dangerous path to be on. So we've got Lucifer, who tricks us into things that make us stronger, smarter, better, wiser, and potentially kinder, but they're very painful lessons that we kind of wish I was a stupid kid that still believed in Star Wars and Marvel movies. Life would be a lot easier. Like, I know evil exists, and yet trying to find it, trying to parse it out, trying to find that. Like, I'm a huge critic of the legal system. I've got a very, very strong innate sense of justice. Good Lord, I got the literal god of justice blessed me with a mangled hand when I got into a fight with two dogs. It was the most fun I had in a decade. That's not a blessing from Tyr, I don't know what is. And Tyr is the god of self-sacrifice and justice. I've got a very strong sense of justice, and I've got a huge bone to pick with how crown prosecutors and district attorneys abuse their power. And yet simultaneously, I understand why they do it. They are but men enmeshed enmeshed in the social system with incentives and palms to grease and backs to scratch, and they had to go to university where they got indoctrinated in the same stupid belief system as everybody else. And because they spent so much time looking at the law, they didn't actually have a time having to examine their perceptions, their metaphysical assumptions of reality. So while the legal system does great villainy, it's quite hard to find great villains within the system itself. So I see the evil, but if you try and find it manifest in a single man, it's very, very difficult. It's Lucifer, the one that tricks you into learning things that are painful but good for you. The one that ignites your consciousness with awareness, even if that awareness hurts. Then you've got the shaitan, the adversary. And there was, shoot, I can't remember who said this. It was such a fantastic quote. I owe them the reference, but who was it? Goodness, maybe I'll be able to quote them in the future. But as you progress spiritually, you start to realize that not everything, some of the things that you mistake for evil are wake up calls. And some of the things that you mistake for good are panaceas. That good and evil are not as simple as what seems nice and what seems mean. And so the shaitan, the adversary, is our adversary our enemy? Is he necessarily our enemy? Can our adversary make us stronger? Blake Tillman says the Olympian gods were literally where early Christians got the word demon, demos, from. Wouldn't legitimize their stories ahead of the saints who refuted them. Fair enough, but I will. I mean, it's just a word. It's just it's words move and transform through time, and it's very valuable to find out where they came from and if that's what they originally meant. St. George walked up to the Parthenon in Athens and asked the demons to reveal themselves in the name of the Lord. The statue of Athena literally crumbled that very moment and it revealed itself. I mean, that's the story we're told. We are dealing with mythology in both cases. Figurative Ghost says, if I don't hate Satan for his hatred of God, his dragging of men to hell through temptation, future second betrayal, and his rejecting of evil, I hate him for self awareness. Freedom! Horrible, horrible freedom! No, I don't find that either the Shaitan or Lucifer are convincing depictions of evil. Ahriman, on the other hand. So the article I linked below, the author was talking, I think it's from about 2 years ago. Actually, I should probably check. When was this published? 3 years ago. Good Lord, how much can change in 3 years? So he was talking about the whole control grid that got switched on during COVID and their desire to manipulate our blood. And Ahriman, a demon identified by the Zoroastrians, which, you know what, Tillman, to go back to your comment, demon's the wrong word. The problem with the way that Christians adopted the word demon is that daemon just meant spirit. Okay? Saint Michael is a spirit. All the angels are spirits. There are good and bad ones, and there are some that are more like neutral. There's all sorts of spirits. We have spirits. And to adopt that and only use spirit for the evil ones, it's confusing. Maybe what we've been doing for the past few thousand years is slowly sussing out, trying to suss out anyway, which demons are malicious and which ones aren't. And and the ones in the gray area where they screw with us, but they do it for our betterment. That's the hard ones to figure out. But let's talk about Ahriman. Steiner wrote about how the demon Ahriman wants us to become completely physical, to become addicted to the scientific method, and to never know ourselves thereby. And the author of that piece, one Jason Heppenstall, was writing before the AIs came online. And what I'm really seeing these days, what I'm really seeing is the mirror of narcissists being developed with these AIs about the perfection of the nudge tactics to completely alienate us from our spiritual selves, to turn us into happy little automatons, to worship the created universe, as opposed to participating in the created universe while worshiping God. So if you want to talk about something that's anti-God, Ahriman right there, that sounds anti-God. That sounds very demiurge. I want to trap souls in material reality. You know what else that sounds like? It sounds like, well, people that worship power. And what is power? Power is just the ability, what's magic? Magic is the ability to exert your will upon material reality at the simplest definition. That's what power is. Every creature has power, has some degree of power that it can exert upon reality. In of itself, power is just a part of reality. If you don't have any power, you're dead. The problem with power is that it often leads to power addiction. And the more addicted you are to power, the more addicted you are to physical reality. And so in Ahriman, we see this principle of absolute unrepentant addiction to material reality. As if we have an entity, if we were to imagine reality as a sort of video game that we participate in, it's the difference between finding catharsis in it or playing to get the highest score, even though you're cheating to get the highest score. So I find Ahriman a far more plausible definition of evil than either Lucifer or the adversary. Biggerton's ghost says, I could be a slave in paradise. You don't need to be a slave in paradise. What is what happens when people won't keep their word. When people are at such a low level of consciousness that they won't keep their word and they break contracts all the time, well, you eventually no longer trust them with fulfilling a contract, so you enslave them. Our challenge right now, actually, I've got to read something to you. There was a comment put on one of my recent videos, which I just pinned to the top of this video. It was on the mystery religions of the Aeon of Aquarius. And if you recall, what I was discussing is that every Aeon has the shadow self. And the shadow is where you find the mystery religions. So I said during the age of Pisces, the opposite sign to Pisces is Virgo. And we see this very explicitly masculine religion with the shadow being the feminine, being the cult of the Virgin Mary, being the Sufi dancers in Islam. And now moving into Aquarius, the shadow is going to be Leo. And this user, Triclops, if you're listening, I hope you catch this. This is such a great comment that you wrote. Leo is fixed fire, which is the nuclear power of the sun. Light equals truth and communication. Just the sun's light gives light, it can also kill it. So Leo is tasked to learn self regulation in projection. Leo is center no matter what others feel or think. Other signs see that with resentment. Guided by darkness and blind nature, Aquarius distrusts Leo. Doesn't matter if Leo is truth, Aquarius distorts light with his eyes. Fixed air is a dense atmosphere that causes a mirage and distorts everything outside the self. Aquarius needs to learn to rely on others for truth. Cardinals can help fix signs in learning modulation and as messengers. Fantastic comment. Like Gentleman says, being a slave is great in utopia. Good lord, that's it's our nothing is more destructive than our desire for utopia. United Technocrat says, careful, you might get banned for speaking the truth. I know, right? I'm trying to not be too spicy. Tell you one of the eternal debates when it comes to morality, or the maybe debate's the wrong word. On the one hand is slave. On the other hand, is fool. Let's take Voyages of the Dawn Treader as an example of this. In Voyages of the Dawn Treader, in the book, they did a film where they reversed it, and she just didn't have enough self-esteem, and it was like a demonic twisting of the original story. Well, in Voyages of the Dawn Treader, Lucy, who is the most humble, sweet of the Pevensies kids, most faithful of God, is tasked with going into a magician's house and finding a spell to help some people out. And so she finds a spell book, and as she's going through it, each page has a spell on it, and she can miraculously read all of these spells, even though they're in a script she doesn't understand. And as she's going through them, she stumbles upon a spell that would make her more beautiful. And she starts looking at the spell, and the pictures start coming alive. In fact, it's not just people being depicted in these pictures, it's her and her older sister, Susan, who is the beauty of the family. And she sees herself becoming still her, but a more beautiful version of her. And suddenly everybody is doting on her, and she has men competing for her favor. And she slowly sees that she becomes a very cruel queen, using her beauty to hurt people. And that would be the result. And part of her wants that. Part of her would love to be able to have men challenge one another to duels to win her hand. Part of her wants that. And then she turns away because she's got a good heart. Now I use this as an example because most of my audience is men. We are not tempted in that way. And we can certainly see that there are women that use their beauty, that use their desirability for evil ends. And yet, this lesson this lesson being taught by C.S. Lewis there that beauty can be cruel, can't you also see it as a slave morality? Just accept what you got. It ain't getting any better than this. Somewhere there's got to be a line. If a woman can improve her competition in the dating market by wearing a push-up bra, is that evil or is that will to power? Where's that line between will to power and slave morality? Well, I would suggest that one of the lines where it's no, you're not being taught slave morality, you're being given good advice. One that is particularly relevant in the age of Tinder is if you ladies keep going for guys out of your league, you're never going to get them. You're just going to get your heart broken. No, you're a lady, you don't pull men. There's nothing to be bragging about there. Which isn't to say a lady shouldn't try and get the best man that she can, but it should be the best man, not that will sleep with her, but that will commit to her. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. That's not slave morality. That's humility. But taken too far, it becomes slave morality, doesn't it? Have a good day at work, United Technocrat. We're talking about existential reality and suffering and what we ought to be doing given these clear limitations that have been placed upon us. Were these clear limitations? Was this a giant prank by Zeus when he sent Pandora down with that box full of gifts and troubles? May well be, but until we unseat Zeus from Mount Olympus, I don't know what we do about that. A huge component of wisdom is that this is as good as it gets. Don't blame Pain. He's an honest chap. Freaking thing. Ruined my soliloquy. You stay faithful to Pain, maybe he'll have a word with gravity when they open the books. It's a quote from David Firth's Health Reminder series. Fantastic bunch of videos. Strongly, strongly recommend. Mount Olympus can be toppled with a mustard seed. Okay, but how do we topple Yahweh? Same Final Fantasy, man. Doesn't matter how much you level up. Good luck even finding the angel with the flaming sword outside of the garden. Faith in what, though? Ahriman works with Shaitan, according to Steiner. Now that's where I'm saying he might be wrong about Shaitan. Shaitan isn't a person, it's a job. It depends upon the Shaitan. To put another way, you've got loan companies that'll work with you when you're trying to build your credit. And then you got others that'll break your fucking kneecaps. What we can do is try and influence the world. The danger that you often become that which you fight. I don't ultimately know what battles are going on in heaven. According to Steiner, there was a great battle in heaven in 1879. And in the fall of that year, many entities were cast down to Earth. And now they're here. I've been trying to research this more. I am pretty sure that the Freemasons declared 1879 as the beginning age of Aquarius and started building all these monuments. And then we got World War One. I think the Freemasons really shit the bed with that one. Honest mistake, though. The question I find myself dwelling upon is what can we do about the manifest evil in this world? Battles between the gods. I don't know there's much I can do about that. I don't even know which stories to believe. I noticed the patterns to the stories. I noticed that which stories to believe. I noticed the patterns to the stories. I noticed that certain stories have a greater resonance of truth to them than others. I try and align harder with that resonance as opposed to trying to affirm certain stories to be canon. I think one of the big secrets is humility. Proper humility. Not slave morality, not subservience, not blind faith either. It was one thing to have blind faith during Pisces, right? Like we basically had 99% of the human race was at levels like 2 and 3, which in today's world, we put those people in prison. The majority of people were like really useless back in the age of Aries. So age of Pisces, we dumbed down the curriculum and we started leveling up the slow kids at the cost of punishing the smart kids. Which is why the smart kids had to disappear into alchemy and hide everything they were saying in puzzles and chemistry because we were all in remedial class for the past couple millennium. We are no longer in that remedial class. Eagles will be allowed to soar again, and lions will be allowed to roar. And so proper humility is that recognition of material reality is what it is. You have this degree of capability. And there's that deeper wisdom that what you resist persists. And this is the circle I'm still trying to square. We have such radical exploitative evil in the world right now. I mean, the world's always been a corrupt and broken place, full of corrupt and broken people. It's like, things never change. But the extent of the harm being perpetrated upon innocence right now is that I think is unique. I think probably during previous eras we had a little bit more humility about everything. Even the people at the top had a bit more humility. And then the power brokers came. The people who realized they could manipulate credit. They could abuse usury to gain more and more power. Even though the more power you gain in this world, the more locked in to this world that you are. The less of a meaningful experience you're having, and the more of a slave to power you become. That's what I think we need to be breaking out of. Questions, problems, concerns, folks. Give me some stuff to respond to in the text messages. No, it's been a pretty far out there stream, but there are no easy answers to any of this. There's only interpretations. There's only pattern recognition. There's resonances. There's things that resonate true. I mean, the gods of Olympus are still here, Pinkerton. Do you not feel Aries at times when you're preparing for combat? Does Saturn not lay down delineations? Is Dionysius not quite mad? They've gone into the background. They've disappeared into poetic similes for now, but they're still there. You can't kill an immortal. We still have the blood of our ancestors in us. I'm gonna finish off with the last thought about what it means to interpret something. The act of reading the Bible is an interpretation. All acts of perception are acts of interpretation. And this is not some lofty ivory tower solipsistic position. This is metaphysical reality. And one of the ideas being promoted by Ahriman is that we have this scientific body of knowledge, and science is somehow not an act of interpretation, even though you're literally interpreting data, and it's always messy data. It's almost never correct data. Don't you remember doing science experiments in high school? You never actually got the correct measurement for gravity acceleration. You always screwed up your measurement somehow. We like to imagine, like we've Ariman promotes this idea of objective scientific reality, but science is just as much a matter of interpretation as reading the Bible is a matter of interpretation. Like the act of reading is interpreting. The act of observing is is affecting the experiment. There's no objective scientific reality without heuristics of observation. And likewise, there is no objective religious truth without observation. Both concepts are ridiculous from the get-go. There is etheric resonance. There is no out of capacity. Okay, this is the one advantage we have is that spark of light, probably from Lucifer, um, as God's agent. It's that infinite tunnel of darkness towards Anwin. Anwin, the lone candle in an infinite darkness. That primordial spark of intelligence, an infinite regress from us, and yet it exists through all perception. It's so strange that eyes are such a liquid black color, aren't they? And yet it's a liquid black full of light. That's the light of Anuin. That's the light of God. That's the infinite regress. That is the noetic capacity to assign valuation to perception. That I think fundamentally the source of all magic is that ability to assign valuation. And we are very much in a realm at this point. We're in a reality where magic is becoming more and more powerful through by day. Seriously, I am now apparently in a timeline where the moon is different than it used to be. It's close, but the moon is not the same moon anymore. Not for my timeline. It had larger seas on it in my original timeline. So, yes, things are getting weird. So, you folks better get weird faster if you want to keep up. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the stream. Don't shoot the messenger, man. I'm just telling you what the actual holy books actually say. Carpe futurum tenetraditum. Live heroically. Aurini out.